Добрий день, вітаю всіх, хто приєднався
Hello
до нас.
everyone, thank you so much for joining. Greetings, my name is Olga Tamanova and I really am happy to welcome you at the Media Center. This is the third event dedicated to women peace security, how international experience is shaping the local decisions in Ukraine. So we will talk specifically about this. Like in the end of May 2025, recently Ukrainian delegation has had a trip to the Netherlands and Belgium, and in the framework of WPS Local Needs, Local Solutions project, we've had this meeting, and during the visit, our Ukrainian delegation introduced Ukrainian expertise and experience in localizing UNSC Resolution 1325 and discussed the opportunity to integrate the comprehensive approach to security directed and targeted at women's needs, IDPs' needs, and also people with special needs and vulnerable categories of population. So we will talk about that in details today. I'd like to introduce our speakers that we have with us. Okay, online with us is Kateryna Levchenko, Government Commissioner on Gender Policy. Here with us we have Natalia Karbowska, UWF Strategic Development Director. We also have Halina Zhukovska, GCGP Secretariat Senior Referent. She's with us. Also with us online, we have Emine. She is the leader of Gender Peace Security Program, International Gender Platform Women Equal Men. And we also have with us online Ms. Oksana Yelchieva, Director of the Department of Social Protection, Mykolaiv Regional Military Administration, and Oksana Shliusar, Secretariat of Coalition in Ternopil Region 1325. Thank you so much, ladies, for gathering. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to pass the floor now to Ms. Kateryna. I do hope you see us and hear us very well, Ms. Kateryna. So we're aware that the agenda of that visit also envisaged participation of Ukrainian delegation. So you've introduced the Ukraine's opinion. So what did you discuss? What we were actually standing on, and which speeches would you like to know there, like which were special? Thank you so much, Ms. Solha. Greetings, dear colleagues. Good afternoon. Truly, it's really important to talk on the one hand on the experience that Ukraine does have in tackling security challenges and ensuring the gender policy enforcement, and also those accomplishments that other countries do have and practices of, let's say, other states and international organizations. If we talk of like what is of interest to our international partners, the lessons, the practices, well, unfortunately, the lessons that we've learned with more than 11 years of Russia's aggression against us and with a full-scale invasion, and the challenges which are the most pressing in this area, something that women and men both face every day. Therefore, speaking at an international conference that was dedicated to the 25th anniversary of UNSC resolution adoption, 1325, which was organized by the European Commission, MFA, and government of Poland, because Poland currently is the leader in European Commission, leading the processes. This conference gathered representatives of all international organizations, structures, various units and departments of EU institutions, and this was super important because with the US refusal from 1325 Women Peace Security Agenda implementation and serious backlash that we have now in human rights policy implementation, the opinion of ECHR, which is the largest, the most powerful partner of Ukraine, let's say this is really important to have that support. We really must keep these issues in the focus of our international partners, in the regular focus. And our lessons when it comes to prioritization of gender policy, gender equality policy by Ukrainian government, and also drafting 2 national action plans and its implementation, NAP 1325 women, peace, security, and we've launched already the process of third plan drafting. Who are the beneficiaries in the process? Not only women, but also men, of course, are on board. So what we talk about, that women, peace, security agenda covers the whole population in general. It's not just about women. So I always introduce the 1325 coalitions practices and experience. We have these coalitions in each of the region of Ukraine, and without a doubt, it's truly something which is of huge interest for international partners. And this is the experience, something that we can actually transfer to them directly. So I also spoke of the activity of the platform of gender mainstreaming and inclusion and recovery that was established in 2023 as a result of the recovery conference in London. And we've engaged government, Vice Prime Minister's office, Ms. Stefanishina's office. They were on board with us, also Ministry of Justice. International partners were with us, developmental partners, and CSOs, in particular Ukrainian Women's Fund. And thanks to UWF, we actually had a chance to get this trip that colleagues will tell in details about. But it was important to exchange some practices, which is much, much, much more important. So today we actually can state that this is an experience exchange. It's not just an awareness-raising trip or a study tour. Of course, there are so many challenges. The war-related challenges. We have still destruction, damage. We have losses, mental problems, regular attacks and shelling. But well, we have to live with that every day, and this is something that we need to know how to respond to this, how to address that. So, what is a challenge for us as well? Also, now women are getting much more load with their household chores, so this is quite disproportionate. It's still on women's shoulders despite everything, and it really complicates and hampers the equal access to labor market, to economic empowerment. Of course, without a doubt, damaged social infrastructure is a problem. It doesn't give a chance for women to for families to get the child care services, something they do require today. And again, the majority of load is held by women's shoulders. And gender stereotypes, you know, that despite the huge efforts, awareness raising campaigns, we still have stereotypes floating in the environment. They're still very powerful. It's not something that we have in Ukraine. This is something that we still have, unfortunately, globally. So, on the one hand, we had enough to share. On the other hand, we heard a lot, of course, from our international partners. Without a doubt, Pramila Patin's speech, special representative of UNSG on serious V countering, and of course the Minister on Equality of Poland, Ms. Kateryna, and of course special representative of NATO on women, peace, security, Ms. Irena Filin, and heads of UN Women. Truly, this was such a vibrant, you know, multifaceted approach to tackle the problem, you know, that basically shows that Ukraine is moving very confidently, in a very sustainable manner, and also actively. We're doing that actively. We're very active in the European community activity. So something that actually brings our society closer to the society or the state of equal rights and opportunities. Okay, thank you, Kateryna. Thank you so much. So the question will be to you, Ms. Natalia. As Ms. Kateryna mentioned very properly, truly this is an experience exchange, and it's happening like this is not for the first time it's happening. We can see that it sparks huge interest from international partners to our experience. So the practices, the experience that you've got this time, if it's possible to implement and integrate in our regional coalitions activity, I mean 1325 coalitions. Thank you so much for the question, Ms. Olga. Truly, I observed that as well, and I would love to quote Ms. Kateryna that truly the trip was about exchanging experience. We weren't just learning, we were just sharing. We were also sharing and telling about Ukrainian cases, success stories, and localizing 1325 in particular. We told about that to our Dutch colleagues. I just want to say that this trip and previous two trips, these managed to take place thanks to the support from the government of Netherlands. And for us, this is truly of high importance. Thanks to that support, Ukrainian Women's Fund, with our partners, together with Ms. Levchenko's office, for 3 years already, we've been implementing a project which is targeted at localizing NAP 1325. If we speak about these trips in general, as I told you, this is like the third one in a row. We had the first one a couple of years ago when we visited our Dutch colleagues to learn, get it from them, how they implement NAP 1325 in their country. And for me, personally for me, I can share my own opinion. This was, I guess, in English they say, eye-opening thing, something that actually opened my eyes so wide. I noticed so many things, and I didn't think about it before in Ukrainian context, but I actually started thinking about it back then. Back then, what we've seen, what we've observed, CSOs and NGOs, how effective these can be together with government, that they can draft, not only basically draft or design, but even implement NAP. And I can say that truly in my professional experience, I had a lot of these like study tours or trips, but that first one, I can call it like it was the most effective one, because instantly, right at that moment when we came, we started, like, we had colleagues from the Ministry of Social Policy in a group, from Ms. Levchenko's office, unanimously, completely in one voice, we started, like, we all agreed that this is the methodology, this is something that we really need to plant here in Ukraine, not just saying that, okay, we implement it, but actually do it. And now we share our own experience and practices with the partners. The second trip we had it, like last year in 2024, we spoke of two very specific things back then: how to communicate, how to articulate everything that is being done under the WPS security, and very specific results we have. So today we are ready, and soon we'll launch a website, national website, where all the information will be gathered. Our partners, Ms. Levchenko's office, of course, Minister of Social Policy, and our partners in the regions are actively engaged in that. And in fact, the website will contain the full extent of information that we have available in Ukraine on NAP implementation and regional plans as well. And this trip, I can say that it was, I would say this was just one in the series of the trips, the bridging one with the previous and the following. And we were not learning that intensely, but we already were sharing it with Dutch colleagues, like how we localize, how we perceive the WPS issue, like in general, not just the physical security and safety, like shelters, bomb shelters. Ms. Kateryna spoke of that. We speak of environmental safety here, and economic safety, of course, access to education, access to information, and countering misinformation. This whole thing for us, well, this is about the complex security approach. It's important. It's important not just for us, for Ukraine to understand, but for EU partners as well, because this is about them as well. And it's really important that in our groups, in all three of them, we had representatives from the regions, regional 1325 coalitions. They were there. Ladies representing regional administrations, because they are the hands that implement these policies locally. So we can have great national policies drafted in the most beautiful way with all the practices there, but if not implemented properly locally, it still stays just these are just some words on paper. Okay, I'm really grateful to those people who, to our participants we had in the group and in the previous ones. Okay, participants from the regions, thank you for actually taking that and changing your regional context. We'll talk a little bit later about regions. So I'm in Akaya. I hope you hear us very well. I hope you see us. So, as my colleagues already told, this time Ukraine had not only the chance to get experience of others, but we also were sharing something that we've managed to accumulate. Okay, in your opinion, what would be interesting and useful for our partners to know? Which statements were supported and perceived by the audience the most?
Dear all, I am reacting to your question, I presume, but I don't have any translation, so I'm not sure you're hearing me.
У нас є проблеми з перекладом. Сподіваюсь,
So we
зараз
have problems with the
перекладач
translation.
допоможе.
I hope that the translator will help and Miss Emine will hear us.
I'm not
Miss
sure
Emine,
how
do
to
you hear?
address you. I would like to contribute to the press conference in English, but however, I don't have any translation, so I'm not sure what I should do. Shall I proceed?
Питання було у тому, чи який досвід саме
The question was, so which kind of experience will be useful for our partners, experience that Ukrainian delegation shared, which of it will be useful for international experience?
Yes.
So again, which experience that Ukrainian colleagues shared with international partners would be really useful and interesting for international colleagues? Miss Emine, do you hear me? This is Yulia, interpreter. Miss Emine, do you hear me? You need to pick the English channel. I hope that our technical team will fix the translation.
Зараз нас, я так розумію, поки що наша учасниця не чує нашого перекладу.
Miss Emine, are you with us? So do you hear something that's happening? So we will try, our technical team will try to fix that. And right now I'll give the floor to Ms. Halina Zhukovska. So Ms. Halina, let's continue this conversation. I hope that Ms. Emine will hear us eventually and will manage to fix the translation. Okay, so it's really important to study the practices and experience. So we've talked about this complex security and safety. Okay, so this is a very important definition. It's an important concept. So how do you understand it in the Netherlands? Is it perceived there? How do you perceive it there? That the security approach should be like this specifically? Thank you for the question. I'd like to express gratitude to have this opportunity to talk to people directly in the EU, you know, and to talk more about our Ukrainian context and experience that we have here. And of course, to understand what should we improve in the future. Why? Because as it was mentioned by Ms. Kateryna, Ukraine currently is drafting the third NAP 1325, and we already have the draft of this plan. Therefore, this trip was really quite a timely one for us. You know, it was really relevant. When it comes to the approaches on how to define security and safety, so Ms. Natalia mentioned already that today we must actually have a broader vision on the security challenges and on the security per se. But in the EU, well, it's a much broader issue, you know, and globally it's a complex one. And we can say now that China has more than 20 security chapters, let's say, okay? So when it comes directly to us, like what can we use in our national action plan?
The things that our partners shared with us include four approaches to defining security: holistic approach, human security, and inclusivity of security. If we speak about holistic approach to security, we have to speak about physical, digital, and psychosocial security. Let me say straightforward that right away that digital security is the #1 priority everywhere in the world. And this is one of the requirements that we see that digital security has to be prioritized. Cyber fraudulent activities and crimes are ubiquitous. Speaking of human security, we have to be focused on the achieving the goals of freedom from poverty and freedom from other limitations. And our national action plan does not cover all of them in full. So we have to think about how we can improve the situation. We have to focus on national strategy for in the part which provides for ensuring equality, bridging the gender gap, pay gap especially, ensuring gender equality in educational sector. Ukraine has quite a broad range of laws that have to cover all these issues. Now to general security. What we mean here is national security, also economic security. Kateryna was mentioning challenges in this sector, and we have to work with the national action plan, and the next version of this plan should factor those in. And this has to be aligned with all the recovery and rebuilding of Ukraine efforts. And inclusivity has to be factored in as well. Now back to NAP 1325. One of the key requirements in the context of full-scale invasion to Ukraine was that we considered new groups that required inclusivity, new groups that had specific needs. At the moment, we are working on that issue, but we have to consider capacity of all the groups, leadership qualities of both men and women, and that has to be considered while developing new NAP 1325. At the moment, our national action plan has been submitted for official proposals by the central executive authorities. By 20th June, we expect to get their feedback, their stance on that draft plan. So, you know, the message we got during the first visit to Netherlands was related to our goal of establishing coalitions, and that became our unique experience, unique experience for all of the stakeholders on the Ukrainian side. And the Ukrainian Women's Fund conducted this assessment of the National Action Plan 1325, and based on that monitoring, we can say that after pooling our efforts, our coalition is capable of performing 1/3 of all the objectives we have on the national level. And that shows how important funding is. Considering the fact that Netherlands conducts monitoring throughout Europe and they have funds for that, we were able to see that 1/3 of all the funds they have is their state budget. That's the contribution from their state budget. And they are very satisfied with this kind of approach. During all the meetings in the parliament, in the central executive authorities, we were highlighting our openness to cooperation, and we expressed our willingness to keep working together with our partners, especially with the aim of localization of the third NAP. Thank you. It sounds really compelling. Now we are going to move on to Oksana, to Mykolaiv, and we know that Mykolaiv was especially affected after the full-scale invasion, and the city of Mykolaiv has enormous amount of challenges. So what are your key takeaways from this visit? Dear colleagues, thank you so much for the invitation and opportunity to speak here today. That's a valuable chance for us to have taken part in this study visit. We were represented by CSOs, and we were participating in the meetings with the UN agencies, with the state authorities involved in decision making in Netherlands. It was really interesting for me personally to see how NAP 1325 is implemented in Netherlands. I I see eye to eye to what Kateryna was saying, and Natalia as well, as Halina. What I mean is we have not only studied things, we were exchanging experience with our colleagues in the Netherlands. Mykolaiv is very close to the front lines, and we were very close to occupied territories. We are, and it was very interesting for our foreign partners to know about our experiences in terms of how we were acting to provide quality services for women and children. So our partners were asking us a lot about this because they have never had any similar experience like we have had. Now, let me also say that it's been critical for us to hear from CSOs and international organizations and how they build their cooperation, especially with a view to implementing NAP 1325 and the resolution Women, Peace, Security. Now, these cooperations we have been able to observe, they have been in place for a long time, and these coalitions that are formed, they are working on the next versions of these documents. This regional coalition we have covers all CSOs involved in issues related to women's lives. And that means we can have their valuable contribution and input when we are working on the next version of the plan. That's very important. Why? Because we now live in these challenging times of the full-scale invasion, and in for women to be involved or in decision making on all levels, we have to work really hard. So the UN resolution WPS being implemented really shows a high level of efficiency. So women's interests have to be included and considered on all levels of decision making, especially now during these challenging times of full-scale invasion. Another area of work for regional coalitions where we have cooperation is gender-based violence, prevention of gender-based violence, in fact. And here we place special focus on the territories, deoccupied territories. We have a lot of severe implications for lives of those women who live or lived in those territories. And that's not only women, of course. Those include also children and men, and we are trying to provide them with quality services. In Mykolaiv region, we have over 40 specialized services ensuring that women get what they need. And these services are covered by the coalitions that now are established. And that's really an invaluable progress in our activity for the beneficiaries, for our beneficiaries, which means women can reach out and get what they need. Another area of work for us is covering the needs of those who have been affected by the ongoing conflict. So we are trying to do our best for women in these territories to have their rights exercised efficiently and protected efficiently. And we talk about economic security, environmental security. You all know that in Mykolaiv city, the water supply system has been affected by this war, and we have significant difficulties with access to fresh water. And you probably remember about this explosion at Kakhovka water pool. There's been enormous consequence for the environment. And we also work in the area of demining and recovering the agricultural lands, like clearing them from explosive devices and unexploded ordnance. We also work with women and elderly people. We have over 120,000 internally displaced persons. Over 30,000 of those are children. And the other 70, almost all of them are women. So now we are working together with CSOs that are part of this regional coalition 1325 to cover their needs and provide them with the necessary services. So we have a lot of challenges and we have to tackle those. So due to many efforts, including these study trips and cooperation within these regional coalitions, we can be effective in what we do. And how do we know that? Because our beneficiaries, affected women, give us positive feedback. It sounds incredible because coalition in Mykolaiv has been established very recently, and we are very impressed by the scope of work you are doing. Can you share a bit more about the cooperation in the framework of coalition is effective for you? How effective is this as a tool? And how much would you recommend it for everybody around? You know, we have many groups as our beneficiaries, elderly people, women, ex-combatants, and so on. And what we find most important is communication between CSOs and governmental sector, because without this link or cooperation, there will be no accessible services that would be satisfying the needs of these groups of vulnerable people. We represent the authorities, and we don't have the expertise and tools that the civil society has. So only in cooperation can we reach out to these beneficiaries and provide them with quality services. Coalition 1325 covers a lot of powerful organizations. For example, Lubistok, this charitable fund in Mykolaiv, and they focus mostly on those who were affected by human trafficking and the war and violence. We also have this information center, Olvia. They mostly focus on internally displaced women in two districts of our region that that hosted the biggest numbers of internally displaced women and children. Another organization that we have, Positive Women, they provide support to women, HIV positive women. another organization providing psychosocial support to women. As you can see, it's a complex of different civil society organizations that specialize in different sectors. The coalition also comprises of organizations representing interests of competence of service persons, and that gives us this comprehensive approach. We can cover all the affected groups, all the vulnerable groups, including women. And that's critical because without this cooperation, without these links and mutual support, we can of course work, but our results would not be so impressive. Thank you so much, Oksana. It was Mykolaiv. We have another colleague of ours who he represents Ternopil region, Ms. Shliusar. We know that Ternopil is a totally different region of Ukraine, absolutely different from Mykolaiv. It's significantly further from the front lines. Nonetheless, we understand there is no safe space in Ukraine now. You have different challenges. You have also some IDPs hosted by the region. What was most important for you in that trip? What can you implement in your region? Dear colleagues, let me also start with saying the words of gratitude. We appreciate the efforts of organizing this study trip. It was a powerful experience for us. We are very grateful to all the participants of this trip, to professionalism, to openness and willingness to work together. How was this trip useful for me as someone who is coordinating the efforts within this 1325 NAP? Yeah, like you said at the beginning, Ternopil is far from the front lines, but still we have experienced humanitarian challenges, and Resolution 1325 is a critical tool for us. Why? Because compared to Mykolaiv, we are a smaller region, but still we have 63,000 IDPs, out of whom 60% are women. What does it mean? That we have about 38,000 internally displaced women in our region. Let's say it's a woman from Mariupol with 2 children whose husband has been killed in the war. It means she would need a temporary housing, psychosocial support, employment, integration for her and for her children, and that requires long-term planning and comprehensive approach in tackling this challenge. This woman is very vulnerable, and she is also very prone to secondary traumatization. That's why it was very important for us. Another thing, we have this new segment of reality, namely that women are going through certain transformations due to their experience in the military. That changes gender roles in the region significantly. Ternopil region is a leader in terms of how many women volunteer to be recruited to the military.
So 48% of all volunteers are women. And of course, this, well, if woman, for example, had certain military service and period of military service, and she served and she returned, so she needs reintegration. She requires that. Uh, Also, a woman who had this military experience, and as a woman whose whose social role has radically changed. Therefore, National Action Plan (NAP) provides the foundation for that reintegration. And of course, preventing the GBV is really important for our region as well. as those challenges that we have, they entail certain social stress and tension among people. So domestic violence, GBV risk is going up in general. So for us, it's super important also to make sure that we promote women's leadership and give them more economic opportunities, because currently, who are the breadwinners in the families? Mostly women. They're developing small businesses and they are pushing the social initiatives forward. This is so implementation of national action plan is itself a legal background, regulatory framework to support those initiatives. And we cannot, of course, forget about psychosocial support, PSS, mental health, as currently our women are, they have a double load on their shoulders, if not triple. So the war trauma and increased responsibility, there is responsibility to support those who are close to them. And implementation of NAP envisages certain support systems. And it's of huge value, not just for those who are directly affected, but those who provide support, the providers. And me as a person who works in a CSO for more than 20 years, I know about that very well. And it's of great value that Ternopil region, in Ternopil region, we can speak of post-war recovery process participation, engagement in that, because reintegration of demobilized military will be there, will come to the fore, and how to recover the damaged infrastructure, how to allocate money for social programs. We'll start talking about this, and how important it is to have the women's voice in those decisions. In women's contribution, we understand that peace is much more sustainable and long-lasting when women are at the table with peaceful processes established. And it's super important that even the Coordination Council is engaging us, women from various sectors like entrepreneurs, human rights activists are there, and IDP women, veterans, female veterans. So despite this geographical, we're not, let's say, we don't have this close proximity geographically to the front line, we can become, at the Ternopil region, a transformational lab. National Action Plan is not an abstract resolution. It's actually a very specific tool, very well-drafted tool that helps to solve very specific challenges and helps to present, introduce the systemic approach eventually. And also forecast all the risks, the risk not to lose the potential of women's leadership, how to avoid certain social breakages and splits and segregation. This is a very good thing for stability, because our region, which sometimes is called the safest, but that in Ukraine currently we don't have safe places at all. But our region may become very important to understand how to build peace in future, because this is not the absence of war, but peace is about justice in the agenda. When you have justice coming, when the voice of each woman matters, okay, that is what I call justice. This is really important and valuable. This trip that we had, it helped us even more because we had some learning as well there. We spoke all the time of our practices, as you told Miss Natalia, Miss Halina spoke of that. And this trip itself gave us a chance to see those practices. Maybe for me, for example, was very, very, all the meetings were important, but what was of extra value for me to meet, to see how the Women International Gender Platform is operating in Hague, in the Netherlands. We had that chance, and the key practices, the core practices that I noted, I think these can be of huge help for us as representatives. The coalition, Region Coalition is 1325 for us in Ukraine. Representatives of women's human rights activists, CSOs. What I noted for myself, what was really important for myself, women systematically engages women in security and peacemaking processes, of course, backed by Resolution 1325. this integrated gender approach in security programs is truly this is actually holistic security. It's all about holistic security, not just inclusive psychosocial, digital safety and security. This is really relevant in the context of post-war recovery for Ukraine. Because this only proves how valuable our coalitions when we have state institutions on board together with civic society, when there is interaction with international partners at the same time. Of huge importance also is that women organization builds these powerful partnerships, local partnerships with local women's groups and activists. And it actually itself is a proof that we're on the very right way here, because we managed to merge the experience of CSOs and NGOs, like in Ternopil region coalition managed to merge CSOs from various communities, from the remote ones, not just from the Ternopil city as a regional center, like from distant villages. And it actually helps to ensure the experience exchange and have some powerful, like joint idea generation. And it just tells us that in future, this can be put in practice. What else was important for me? To learn something from our partners and to tell about our PSS programs with gender focus. It's very important to hear everyone's voices, voices of the marginalized groups and women's voices and men's voices, of course. That is of huge value and importance as well. And this inclusive approach, when it comes to participation, it shouldn't be just the statistics, purely the statistics or the statistic sheet. This should be some analysis of actual cases and practices from various women's groups. IDPs, I mean, female IDPs, representatives of national minorities, ethnic minorities, we have these in our region as well. Women with disabilities also, elderly women. And this is something that will definitely make this planning inclusive when it comes to security. And of course, the Women Platform is the platform that is actively engaging men and women to post-conflict recovery planning. And the focus on transformative changes there is. And it actually confirms, it is confirmed by the CSO's practices. CSOs which are targeted at women's leadership development and preparation programs. So I'm really happy with that. And to make sure that in future, these local recovery processes are taking place for local security policies to be shaped properly. This is of huge value, and this is really important for us. Thank you so much, Ms. Oksana. We're amazed with some of the figures, like, okay, 48% of women taking part in recruiting. Well, I guess that is a wow thing for us today. Thank you so much. We're getting some good news. When I listen to my colleagues from regions, I do feel how much I love the regions of Ukraine, how much affection I have. And this to find the best in your region, just introduce this. Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity. Not just me, but the whole audience had this feeling, and we all felt your enthusiasm and your inspiration, something that inspired you to give the speech, and you managed to find the most interesting things. Okay, thank you. And as far as I understand, we finally have no problems with translation. I hope that Ms. Emine actually heard us. I hope she had a chance at least just to grasp something from the wonderful feedback that our participants were giving today on this great trip. So, Ms. Emine, it's really interesting to get something from you. Ukrainian experience, what was interesting for our international partners? Because what useful did you find in your Ukrainian counterpart speeches?
Yes, thank you so much. And I was able indeed to hear the last 15 of minutes translated. And first of all, I would really thank you so much for this opportunity, and a special thanks to the delegation, of course, also meeting Mrs. Kateryna Levchenko. The main takeaways from our side, the question we had, of course, having you all here, was also the interaction as an international organization organization. I'm not sure whether you all know Women Equals Men. The most of you who participated knows that we are CSO. We have 60 civil society organizations, and we are the co-coordinator on the Dutch NAP 3025 with 4 ministries: the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Justice and Security, the Ministry of Education, and of course the Ministry of Air. Takeaways we had, of course, in supporting actively
Miss Emine, I'm
European.
sorry. Miss Emine, I'm sorry, but I hear my translation in Ukrainian. When I translate you, do you have some other device maybe working in your room? Because I hear myself when it's something's echoing.
Okay, let me check because we've got a bit of difficulties today.
Свій голос у вигляді ехо. Мені трошки дуже важко перекладати.
Зараз спробуємо технічну команду попросити щось з цим зробити.
Yeah, sorry, Miss Emine, but I hear my voice in the background and it's really hard to translate you. I'm sorry because something should be done. Yeah, I'm sorry for that.
I'm so sorry. Oh.
So let's try again, maybe. If I hear my echo, I don't know. Maybe they already eliminated that.
Yeah, let's start with 10. Do you hear me?
Sorry, I'm losing you. Your connection is unstable. It shows the red the red bars. I guess I'm losing you because you get frozen like second by second.
Okay, what shall we do? Then do you continue without me?
No, I hear you much better, so you may continue. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Well, Women Equals Men, we were really happy to host you in The Hague and in Brussels. And our main takeaways is that the ministries really appreciated your attendance and also the exchange to have with you, not only in paper, but also in person and, you know, with all the people attending. From the Dutch MFA, I think it was really important to have a real-time update on the work you were doing, especially also towards the recovery of the Ukrainian people, but also not only on the security aspect, but also, as you said, on the risks we have now in the access to water and also to the fact that human trafficking and the internally displaced people here staying temporarily here in the Netherlands, all those themes were discussed. And I think that the engagement and also the discussions we had about that will really also affect positively the policies these ministries are conducting. And I think also the emphasis on that we have to continue our work together, but also with the focus which you also bring in also in these discussions, not only from a national Ukrainian perspective, but also from a regional, that these differentiations are very important in our developing of our policies from the ministry sides. And also that, what I also love saying that a colleague of you mentioned, the NAP 3025 is a really important and critical tool to develop our policies as we are doing now, especially on the women, peace and security side, but also from a holistic perspective. And I'm not sure if you're hearing me clear.
Yeah, absolutely, Miss Emine. I hear you very clearly. Thank you.
Yeah. So the regional importance is very important. I think that the most people took that away. And also that from a holistic point of perspective, and I'm going to the
Спікерка
second.
говорить, ми чуємо.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I hear my echo in the studio. We again have some technical issues. Yeah, now it's better.
Fine. Shall I continue my answering then?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think those were the main takeaways also from the Brussels perspective when we met the European parliamentarians, that They literally also met with you in person and also talking about gender-based violence and sexually conflict-related issues. I think they also really sensed the urgency, but also by presenting the book you shared with them, it gave them really good insights of the conflict, what is happening now in Ukraine, and especially affecting women, peace, and security areas. But also from the agricultural and energy point of view, that the access to water is so crucial when you're talking about the recovery processes, which everybody's also now discussing from a strategic point of view. And in talking about that, we, of course, are working now together from a consultancy basis with the delegation on how we can detail more in depth and comprehensive vision to address women, peace and security, and naming it not only women, peace, security, but a holistic security. I think that's really also for us very interesting to see that intersectional approach by developing a new National Action Plan 3025. And I think that is also a takeaway we bring into our developing of our Dutch NAP 3025 to look at it, that we have to integrate all the livelihoods which are affecting the women's security, not only in Ukrainian perspective, but more from a global perspective, that we should consider it as crucial to take a more comprehensive review, as we are doing already, when we are talking about the life and livelihoods of threatening the security position of women. And I think that is an basis which we can also strengthen each other based on the experience we have from your side, but also from the Netherlands, that we should integrate also the aspects so as secure access to water and secure access to food security, secure access to health and mental health, and secure access to energy, electricity, and digital access from a secure point of perspective. And also take into account that the conflicts people now in your country are enduring. And I like that the previous speaker said it brings a transformation. And I think with all our experiences, and that's a personal opinion, is that we can use that transformation to make really the women, peace and security and NAP 3025 agenda more, how do you say it, more strengthened. And we can give there also our voices to it, that we have that advocacy, that all of us have to strengthen this specific NAP as a critical tool for women, peace and security globally. And of course, now for your recovery processes in Ukraine.
Дякую вам дуже, дякую,
Thank you
що
so much. Thank you so much for joining our conversation today. And just to finish with, okay, if we still have Miss Kateryna Levchenko with us, just maybe a couple of words to draw a thick red line under that meeting. Okay, Miss Kateryna, a little bit about the next steps.
Thank you very much, dear participants, both online and on site. As you can see, it's crucial for us to have to gain this experience and knowledge of other countries working on same issues, ensuring equal opportunities for men and women. On the other hand, Ukraine does have something to share, to give in exchange. My colleagues have highlighted this not once during today's meeting. What's next? We can continue working on implementation of the second NAP 1325. It's intended for the period ending at the end of this calendar year. And parallel to that, we keep working on the draft of the following version of the following plan. And that just illustrates that Ukraine keeps the word given before and maintains the commitment in front of the international organizations. And we have to finish drafting the next plan by the end of this year. And we will, of course, factor in all the lessons we learned during the study visit in Netherlands, especially with the view or to security. And I'm not talking only about the times of war and physical security. I'm talking about environmental security, cyber security, economic, food security, and other types of security, not just human security and physical security. We will keep implementing all our knowledge and experience, and we will try and keep Ukraine relevant for the rest of the world, so that the crimes committed by Russia in Ukraine would never be forgotten. Now, let me show you a book that we have presented in Netherlands and Belgium. It's Ukraine does not keep silent. It's a chronicle of gender and sexual crimes. You can find both this book in both English and Ukrainian on our on the website of Ukrainian Women's Fund. And another book we presented, uh, uh, it, sex violence in the war times in Ukraine. This book is also available. It's going to be presented physically quite soon, and we invite you to attend this event. It's all about the things that we are talking here today about, and I really want to thank our international partners for the opportunities to communicate with them, to exchange with them, and to be inspired by you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for these closing remarks. I heard a lot of ambitious plans today, and I wish you all a lot of inspiration and energy to implement those plans. And let me thank the military forces of Ukraine that make it possible for us to still be alive and be together today. Thank you. All the best.